Hello, welcome to this next Flip preaching video. Next Sunday, the Sunday we're building up to, is Palm Sunday. It's the Sunday before Easter, and it's a time every year we think about an event that happened in Jesus' life as he was approaching Jerusalem, where he would face his final week, and where he would be killed and brought back from the dead, given new life. And that's the Easter story, but we're getting ahead of ourselves there, of course. So the week before, we think about an occasion where a crowd threw down palm leaves on the floor and waved them, and somehow recognized who Jesus was. But this year we're looking at Luke's version of it. So the passage is Luke 19:28 to 40. And Luke's version is quite interesting because it doesn't have any palms in it. It's a bit different to the other ones. In the other versions they wave palm leaves around, and they shout Hosanna, which was the inspiration for many a Christian song over the years. But you don't get that in Luke's version. There are no palm leaves. They use their cloaks, and they don't shout Hosanna. They don't talk about they don't say that Jesus is the new King David like they do in the others. And the reason for this, we think, is because Luke wasn't writing to an audience who were once Jews. Mark and Matthew were both writing to people who either were Jews and have become Christians, or they're people whose near relatives were Jews. But Luke was writing to people who were completely different. They were from a different sort of Greek Roman background, and it would have meant nothing to them to talk about waving these palm branches. It was a reference back to a Jewish festival called the Festival of Tabernacles, where as part of that people would bring these palm fronds into the temple and process around waving them. But for people who didn't know that background, it meant nothing. And Luke quite often does this. He takes out the Jewish features of the scriptures, not because he's anti-Jewish, but just that he knows that wouldn't really work for the people he's writing to. He's kind of adapted the story to meet the context of the people he's writing to. And I think that's quite interesting because for those of us who are in the business, that's the wrong word, isn't it? But those of us who are wanting to bring God's news to others today, it's a reminder that we need to make it relevant, when we need to make it appropriate. We don't use words unnecessarily that are confusing and from a different world and a different time and a different place. So where we can, we need to make it match the people. The message stays the same, but the trappings sometimes change. Anyway, the thing I wanted to focus on today is one of the things that the people said. And so he's on the Mount of Olives, which is a hill outside Jerusalem, and he's looking down, facing Jerusalem. And it says that the multitude of the disciples, began rejoicing, praising God, and they began to say, "Blessed is the one coming, the King, in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory in the highest." Okay, there's a multitude of people, and they're saying that they're proclaiming that peace in heaven. Now, what I want to do is to compare this to another story right at the start of Luke's Gospel, in Luke 2, around about 14, which is the story of the shepherds, which is a well-known from nativity plays and Christmas carols. In the shepherd story, it says that there was a multitude, same word, of angels. So in today's story, we've got a multitude of disciples, humans. In the Luke 2, the shepherd story, it's a multitude of angels. The angels used almost exactly the same words. They say glory in the highest heavens to God, and on earth, or to people, peace and goodwill. So we've got this really interesting mirror. Well, I think it's interesting. We've got, on today's story, we've got people saying peace in heaven, in the other story we have angels saying peace to people. It's like they're two sides of the jigsaw. It's I think a really useful reminder about what the good news is about. So often we think that Christianity is it's a cure so that when you die you go to heaven, and that's the way it's been pitched for a long time. It's been pitched as a solution to the problem: when you die, do you go to heaven or do you go to hell? And it's the way to make sure you go the right way. But that's I don't know. I think there's a lot of problems with the way that's. There's a lot of problems with that. It's not really the way that salvation is described in the Bible. It talks instead of heaven and earth coming together. It talks of God coming down and making his home among us forever. The book of Revelation, right at the end of the Bible, talks about the heavenly city, heaven coming down to earth, and both the earth and heavens being remade into one unified thing, people living alongside God. So what we've got here, we've got the people saying peace on heaven. We have the angels earlier saying peace to people. It's the two sides of not the jigsaw, two sides of the, what comes in two sides? It's like the two sides anyway, coming together and matching up. We've got heaven coming to earth and peace to both. And this is what Jesus was about to fulfill. Through his death and resurrection, he broke the barriers, which meant that there wouldn't be peace. He took away all of the barriers, which meant that we could finally have peace on earth and peace in heaven, and the two could be united. So there's quite a lot in that. It's just one little verse, but it's very interesting the way that it mirrors what came before. I wonder what you make of that, the idea of the people proclaiming peace in heaven. It's not something you often think about. Do we need to say peace in heaven? Is it not peaceful there already? Well, apparently heaven needs us as much as we need heaven. That's a thought. Okay, I'll leave that with you. I'm rambling a bit now. I hope to see you perhaps at a service on Sunday. We're doing one at St John's and one in Glenmay in the afternoon. Otherwise, we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.